start running it, and I have to go to my public access meeting. Just let me know when you're done.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm back.
So, Stuart, you're going
Thank
to
you
tell
very
us
much.
You're
the
welcome.
purpose of this committee, its charge.
Right. Yeah, this is the July 23rd. It's the inaugural meeting of the Public Outreach Committee for the New Paltz Governmental Consolidation Study. And we have a proposed agenda here, which we don't have to follow, but it'll give us something to look at if no one else has something to add. And I don't think this is the kind of group where we're going to have motions and all of that to get everyone in order. But because I'm the one assigned from either the village or town board to get the initial meeting started, that's where I've been involved so far. As you see right down at the bottom of the list, at some point in time, they'll expect us to elect a chairman of this august body, and we can do that. And the chairman will report to the overall committee. So it's my understanding that the other committees are out there doing work on various areas, and that as information becomes available about the process and what they're doing, then we're to get that information out to as many people in the public, in the village, and the town as possible, so when it comes to time to act on this, it won't be the first time that everybody heard about what's happening. So this is a big job, and I have some ideas here, and I'm sure you have a lot more ideas, and we can see what we want to do. The meeting is being taped, as all the committee meetings will be in this process, and so we'll have a record of what's happening. I expect them to want us to take minutes, and I don't know if anybody is willing to do that all the time, but I can tell you what the Ethics Commission has decided to do is that the members were all going to, in rotation, do the minutes and submit them for a meeting, and then the next one will do it, and so forth, so everyone is involved, but no one's involved all the time. So I don't know if anyone has an opinion on that, whether you like that, or if someone wants to step forward and say, please let me do the minutes. We're willing to go along with that. So I don't know if anyone has anything to say about that.
I think the rotation is a fine idea and works very well, but we're going to need to flesh out this group before it could begin to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, so
And in terms of choosing a chair, it seems like something we might want to do very soon. Hello. Like tonight.
yeah, if anyone after the discussion on him. All right, so does anyone want to volunteer for the first set of minutes, or do you want me to do that, or what?
I'll do it.
Okay, that's wonderful. Does anyone want to volunteer for the next set of minutes? So we'll have 2 in a row. And we have to talk about how often we're meeting. I would think because they expect to have action by November that it's going to have to be twice a month perhaps until then, I would think.
I'm just sitting in case you have any questions. But my question is, did everybody get a copy of the overall structure of all the committees and the charges to the committees?
I don't think so.
I have
All
an
right.
old one. Which
I'm
is
gonna
probably-
put your emails down. I have Gail's, and I will send them out if you don't have them.
Okay.
Ariana has them, Stuart has them. Pete, you have them, don't you?
Nope.
Okay. So just if you need them. Amanda's is the only email I don't have. I have Pete's.
And it would be a good idea, since I'm not the one doing them this time anyway, that the minutes be sent out fairly soon so that people will remember what happened in the meeting and make comments. And so we can get one turned over, A, to the village clerk and B, to the overall committee, so they'll
And a copy.
know what we're thinking.
And a copy of tonight's recording should go to the clerk also.
Okay. Okay,
Excuse me, when you say the clerk,
Ariana,
do they go
I
to
have
the
yours.
town clerk as well as the village clerk?
I didn't know what we were doing with this.
This is for people who don't have the outline
Oh,
that I
oh,
sent
Well,
out to all trustees
anything
and board
that
members.
I do,
And-
I always send a copy to the village clerk, because if someone wants to foil something, then I know that she has it and I don't have to go through 4 million emails. But should we send a copy to both clerks then? Would that
My
be
question,
appropriate?
raise the question,
No,
why would we not send it to the town clerk?
depository for all minutes recordings is with the village clerk. She is the point person. She keeps the calendar
For the whole business?
and she
Okay.
keeps, once committees begin and you set when you're meeting, that goes with her so she can put it on the master calendar, like finance committee meets the first Monday of the month. Okay, and then, planning is meeting the second Monday of the month, right?
I'm not sure off the top of
But
my head.
anyway, everybody is supposed to set up a structure and so we can fit it in and then the room can be established because all of the recording is gonna be done here. It can't be done at town hall.
Right.
Okay, so does anyone has anything further they'd like to say about the minutes or the taking of the meetings? And by the way, there's nothing sacred about this agenda, we have plenty of space to add more things should you wish to talk about it. All right, so that brings us to number 3, which I see as going to be one of the challenges that we have, is to get the information from the other committees in a form where we can disseminate it to the public. And I don't know if that'll be from their minutes or meeting with the chairman or what, but in order to get enough of a turnaround time shortened so that we can get it out to the public so that they're on an ongoing basis realize what's going on. That's based on what I've seen in history and local government, that's a challenge. So I don't know.
I would suggest that you ask each chair of the other committees to send you a copy of their monthly minutes
Right.
and make them responsible getting it to you rather than this committee having to go digging it up.
And I think maybe a good way of doing this so that it's not too much work on any one person that's part of this committee. Maybe, one person's designated role is to receive this information. One person's designated role is to, give it to, this many publications or put it online in this many ways and, have it be the job of people who, might have more of a specialty with the web, for instance, or people who might have more of a specialty with the writing part of it, making it like a summary of some sort. So that would be a way to balance the workload. Designated roles.
It's a good idea. How many subcommittees are there?
There are 7 altogether, but the umbrella committee is the overall committee.
Right?
And this committee, basically, I would think, other than what information you need me to provide you, Stuart, such as the recommendations that the efficiency committee made to the 2 boards. I think that's something the public needs to know and be very clear on. The fact that we now have gotten the amendment to New York State finance law, which makes us eligible to apply for up to $1 million for the transactional and tax issues. As you may recall, part of the whole problem was whether we were in fact eligible for any grant money, and we are now eligible for grant money.
Right.
70, just say, if we, it's up to $1 million, but just say we found that Peter's and Tim's recommendation was that it would be a 6% tax increase for the town. Of course, the committee has said that the recommendation is that it must be break even for both. But just say, in doing the model budget, we came up with the fact that there would be a tax increase for the town. That is what the amendment to finance law has now given us the opportunity to absorb. 70% of that grant must be used for tax neutrality.
What you're saying though is that this is one of the first things we should try to get out to the public.
Yep, so that the public is educated, and also, more importantly, I think, based on things that came up in the efficiency study itself, was that somehow we have got to find a way to ascertain what questions the community has and that need to be answered, no matter how trite they may seem. They are important to people, and they need to get to us and to you as to what those questions are, and then you would get those to the particular committees that are working on that topic to answer, so that you can come back. And I was going to suggest, since the village is now going to have a Facebook page, that perhaps either we have a segment of that, or that, I mean, I don't do Facebook myself, but a lot of people do, and that seems to be a very good way of getting information out, along with our website and everything else. But people,
Well, that's the next thing we're going to talk about on the agenda. Is,
that would be one of the ways of
methods
finding out the
disseminating
questions.
information.
Can we ask from the overall committee for a list of contacts of, in other words, these are the 6 or 7 committees, these are the chairman or the secretary or whoever they are, this is their phone number and email address and all that. Can we have a master list of that, so that when it comes time to deal with whatever we're going to do, then we know who the people are and we don't have to go fumbling around and finding it, so we can get it right out there.
But as soon as we know who the committee chairs are, because some committees haven't convened yet, and there is a convener. So I can give you the convener's email address if they haven't elected a chair yet.
Okay,
Okay,
and then we'll just
and-
update it as,
All right, I
we
will.
get it as a Word document or something, we can update it as we go.
Well, I'm going to send everybody a copy of the overall
Okay.
commissions and what the different committees are charged with doing and who's the convener. I'll add that in.
And then, once we come up with a plan and see how it works, and people are, hopefully there'll be more people are working on this, then we'll know who's doing what, and they'll know who their contact people are, and then we can do this without all working on everything all
Would
the
it be
time.
helpful for me to send everyone on your committee the actual recommendation as it was stated
Sure,
from the committee?
sure.
Okay.
So I guess that's all we can say about that, number 3, unless somebody has something further to say.
And I'll send it to everybody so that no one has to worry about trying to get it out to anybody else.
That'll be great. So number 4 is just a list of things that came to mind of what we might be able to do to get the information out. And this is just what's in my head, what's in the collective head here. Maybe it's a list twice as long, but in speaking to Bob Fagan as he was setting up for tonight, he didn't think it would be a problem to set up a show once a week or once every 2 weeks, where this kind of sponsored by this committee, where we could either take turns in presenting it however we want to, either just this is the report on where we stand, this committee, that committee, the other committee, or interviewing the chairman of the other committees, what's going on, or having a panel discussion or something to keep this whole concept in front of the public. So I don't, and he would, I think, work with us as a volunteer to help with that.
What about a call-in line to that meeting? In other words,
we could do that. It's
I
just how much time do you have?
I could be watching the show, and if it's live, then there would have a whole segment where you could call in right then and there with your question.
Well, the only thing I could see as a problem to that is depending who you have on that time, and it might be a question that B can answer, and tonight we're interviewing A, and then you look like you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you can
because
always,
you don't have the right
well,
person.
you can always say, we don't know, and we'll please give us your number, and we'll call you back.
I think we should certainly invite input,
Mm-hmm.
response from the public, and then get whatever the questions are, and then find the person who knows the answer to get back to them and put it in some central place. We've had this question and this was the response, so that we're building a record of what's going. But depending how much time, how long the show is, and what experience the people have who are doing this, that calling in thing, I don't know. Might have mixed
I know
results. What do you
that
think?
Don Kerr, when he did the slice of New Paltz, and he is on the Human Resources Committee, so I don't know how much we can, but he had a segment, I can remember when we were beginning the library project, he had a segment and telephones hooked up. He also did it on candidates night, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, for the mayoral elections, where people could call in right then and there with their questions. And so maybe he would be.
Village board members, let's hear what everybody else thinks.
What do you think?
I think
I said let's hear what they
we're
think.
putting the cart before the horse, before the cart before the cart goes first. Cart before the horse. Sorry, I just had a mental breakdown. A little bit here, because I think we should actually take item 5 and put it in front of item 4, because I think right now that's the first immediate thing that we need to do. But I think we can employ the same methods that we have, like the same ideas we have here in 4 can also be used to get the recruits. We're still gonna have to publicize the fact that we exist and see who's interested in participating, and we can use all of these things that are mentioned under 4 in order to get those many hands to make our work lighter. So that's just my suggestion.
And
I just don't want to get mired in details of a specific idea too much tonight, so we have time to get through everything and just make it a nice brainstorming session, and then maybe come out with a few tasks. I just don't want to get too. I think the The call-in show. Thank you. The call-in show is a great idea, but I just don't want to get too heavy in working out the logistics tonight on it. I think first we want to concentrate on recruiting, and then at another meeting get down to the nitty-gritty of that. But I do think it's a good idea. But I would like to focus a little bit more tonight on recruitment.
And I think, I guess to follow that up, we have talked about, Stuart and I are planning on having a volunteer recruitment table at the 125th anniversary celebration. And I think that there'll be a great opportunity to basically recruit people for whatever they're interested in doing. Some people will be interested in this, other people will be interested in other things.
Landlord Relations Council.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one.
Well, related to what Amanda was suggesting, I think I copied everybody on this, but maybe I don't reply to Stuart, but I have suggested that the very small handful of people who remain so active with the CAC, we specifically asked if they would be willing to continue with this effort. It was a small number, but there was a number that were really quite faithful to that effort, and people who had a lot of enthusiasm and some good ideas. But with regard to expanding, making a wider call for volunteers, I'd have to say that you know, I feel that already that the efforts to reach out to people have been rather too slow in getting going. I've heard at board meetings and the umbrella committee meetings to employ many of these media to say, these are the committees, here's who you contact if you're interested in doing it. And I have looked, Sally will tell you, I've asked her, I've said I've gone to the websites, I've gone, the town has a Facebook, I've gone there, I've looked in the newspapers, haven't seen anything that told me which committees, whom to contact if you're interested in doing it, or that, you know, people are invited to do it. So I would suggest that if the effort during the birthday celebration is going to yield anything, that something needs to be gotten out in advance.
Yeah.
That would bring people, you know, somewhat up to date at the very least, to say the steering committee recommended this. The upshot of that was agreement to consider the recommendation, and that consideration is taking the form of study by this series of committees.
And the list of the committees.
And here's what the committees are. As I say again, here are the contact people. I've already heard that some of the committees have begun meeting, and they've already established meeting, you know, days and times. But I think that the public participation aspect of all of this, you know, has sort of fumbled so far, and we know that what kind of debate there was to some degree during the CAC and the steering committee, you know, phase of this. So I'm also going to urge that there be absolute clarity as to what the role of this group is. I will not propose what it should be, but I would certainly hope that whatever it is that the umbrella committee says, yep, that's what we want them to do.
Right. You know, I was under the impression that we did put something in the paper. And I didn't see it, but I
have yet to see anything that says, if you're interested in working with one of these committees,
well, no.
There was a press release in the New Paltz Times.
That included contact information?
Yep.
Well, then I'm sorry, I missed it entirely because it was.
And
well, if you missed it, it means
And
that
I read
it
that,
shouldn't.
but I also,
It means that a lot of people missed it.
I heard the committee discussion.
I missed it
about-
myself
I
and
mean, I
had to
missed
call
it as
the
well,
paper.
but
I saw
assumed that I just
something.
missed
I
it.
saw something in the New Paltz Times that was very generic. I did not see anything, and I'd been ever since I had heard, because I'd listened to the joint meetings, and after I heard and some of this was a particular issue of some of the village board meetings, was opening up the membership of these committees as widely as possible, and there were discussions of putting it on the website, putting it on Facebook, and so on. and so
Well, now
forth.
that it has not been put on Facebook, and I think it should be.
Well, and nor on, I haven't looked recently, but after those discussions, and while I knew the committees were being formed, I began looking on the websites. I couldn't find anything. Well, you remember I said to you,
Yep,
"Where do
you
I find
did.
it?"
You did.
Well,
It's
there's-
supposed to be on both
on
websites.
the recruiting thing, one thing we could do immediately, once we have this list, is to put notices on Channel 23. I mean, sometimes when they don't have a show on there, they have announcements, and we could put that in there and a little explanation. And
For each
the
of the
committees are, and this is the contact person.
Yeah,
And this is the
exactly,
telephone number, and
exactly.
come on down. And we could do that. However, we're reworking
It's
our
supposed to-
website, do it that
it's-
way too.
It's supposed to be the same template on both websites, and it was supposed to be up 3 weeks ago.
We should also make posters for the non-internet folks.
Right.
The non-newspaper readers, the non-internet, we should have just some basic posters up around town.
Local
Or,
businesses.
I'm sorry, around
Yeah.
the village. No, this is village and town. Around village and town. Yeah.
They could be used to go door to door with as well.
Okay, so that's something maybe at the end of the meeting we can decide who's going to get involved with those things, because that has to be done immediately. And I guess this list under 4 here are just some possible ways of dealing with the information once we get it. And there are other things, but unless everyone's going to devote their entire life to this committee, we're going to have some other people help us. And I found that the most effective way to get other people is to ask them personally.
Exactly.
Hearing something on TV or reading it in the paper is not as effective as
That's
pulling
why-
somebody aside and say, I want to talk to you about this.
That's why
It's
I'd
a
like
great opportunity for
to
you.
reach out as a starting point to the people who had shown interest to
Right.
begin with
And
in
the
this kind of
thing
effort.
is that this
Yeah.
committee's work doesn't end November 30th like all of the other committees. Okay?
Well,
Because
it's
once
a
the
lifetime
recommendation is made, then that's where the real,
I was going to say, in most respects, that's when this group's work really
would
should
really
begin.
get going, is when the recommendation is voted on by the two boards and we're getting ready to go to referendum.
I like, listen to the optimist. I absolutely agree with the suggestions that something ought to be developed whereby there are regular, weekly maybe too often, but at this point even monthly would be a major improvement on what's been happening so far with regard to, and I found myself remembering a suggestion that was made by Jerry Benjamin during the steering committee process, which everybody agreed with, but that was something else and nothing ever happened with. But you'll probably remember, Stuart, there was a suggestion that if need be, that there even space be bought in the New Paltz Times. And my own thought had been that with all that these committees are being asked to do to begin with, that to require more than a monthly report would probably be onerous, but to at least have a monthly report and a monthly, if need be, a paid section. And that could be a basic template that would have, each of the committees, the report probably need be no more, frankly, than a couple of sentences. And where committees have no report, it says no report. And that includes, the template would include what the committee is, who the contact person is, or chair, whatever happens to be. Now, is the umbrella committee receiving, requesting reports at your joint meetings?
They're supposed to. Mhm.
Have you been getting reports from?
Well, the only committee, the first committee that met and the committee that has had 2 meetings so far is finance. Okay, the other committees are just getting going. Planning has had 1 meeting. Human resources, I think by the time this month is over, they will have met twice. You all are just beginning. Facilities has not been convened yet. That is Jeff Logan's committee. And that has not begun yet. And I believe Benefit District, that committee that is dealing with special districts and all infrastructure questions, is scheduled to meet, but I know they're scheduled to meet, but I'm not sure of the date. Because none of this comes this way.
Do you want to go down this list and discuss whether they think they're good ideas or bad ideas, or just leave the list until we get further down the road?
Well, does anybody think any of these are bad ideas? 'Cause I think they're all good ideas.
I think they're all good ideas. It's a matter of
We
how
might
much
come
we'll
up
be
with
able
more
to,
good ideas,
what's
but I
our
think-
capacity.
And
But I mean, it's at
and
least
priority.
a starting point.
Yeah, I'm inclined to think that E, F, and G are likely, however, to be most effective when there is a recommendation to be dealt with. I mean, that's one of the things that I think we learned through the CAC, which became pretty loud and clear, is that if you want public response, public participation, you want something concrete, definite to be reacting to. And so they won't come out or respond to the anything short of that, which is not to say, however, that efforts to keep people updated as to what kinds of things are these committees talking about, on a regular basis. But as I say, I'm inclined to think that E, F, and G will have the most impact when there is something specific.
I agree with you, and E, F, and G are the Speakers Bureau and inviting people to
Sorry, I
group
forget that.
sessions and maybe some door-to-door work. But if we have a date of November 30th or whatever it is when we have the recommendation, we have to start way in advance to put the plan into effect on how,
Absolutely.
when the bell rings, how we're gonna be able, we can't start at that time to plan it,
No,
because it'll take
absolutely.
us 3 months and we'll be behind, so now's
No,
the time we can
November
put
thir-
this together.
November 30th is when all committee recommendations are due. I believe we are aiming for January 1st to have the recommendation and the proposition, if you will, referendum item, all done, polished, and ready to go. The umbrella committee has not made a determination whether it should be a special election, okay, or what election it should be. Some people talked about it being at the same time as the village election in May, depending upon what the umbrella committee determines with the components and information that we don't have all of, would really determine when that should be. Since we are going, and this is my own personal opinion, since we are, the efficiency committee recommended a village townwide. In other words, we absorb the village boundaries expand to the town boundaries, and town business is conducted 1 day a year. Okay, that maybe it makes sense to have the election when the village elections are, except that we are going to recommend, or part of the recommendation is that once the consolidation question is answered, and if it is favorable, that it will be a November election. So we will go with a general election so that it is not as cost prohibitive, and our fiscal year will follow most normal fiscal years, which is January through December.
So, does that mean that the village referendum and the town referendum will be on the same day?
The question, well, it always would be.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's not,
The-
okay.
But the question that we do not have the answer to yet, there, as Ariana knows, there's a legal division. Okay, and by legal division I mean we have one legal opinion, two legal opinions. One legal opinion holds that everybody votes once, gets one vote. There is another legal opinion that says because there is a village, which is a legally constructed government, and that is also a part of a town, which is a legally constructed government, that village residents get 2 votes.
Right.
And that has not been answered or clearly,
But either way, they would be on the same day.
but yeah.
Okay.
So when we vote, I think is not the issue. Everybody will vote at the same time.
Right.
So,
I mean, I guess when we have that vote partially depends on, you know, I mean, we have a schedule, but as we saw with the study, the first initial study, sometimes it takes longer than we think. So I guess it depends. We just want to make sure the public has enough time to thoroughly digest the information, and so that they, you know, feel prepared to make a vote, because otherwise they just won't come out to vote if they don't feel like
Well,
they have.
right.
Well, even before that time, when this process is done and there is a recommendation, that recommendation will go to the 2 individual boards.
Right, and they have to
And
approve the
both
same
boards
one.
would have to
Right.
agree to put it on a referendum
Right.
for this to happen.
so there's a
And then-
lot of
then
work to be done.
And then, of course, it would have, and for it to happen after that, the vote would have to be in favor of it for,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And then, Amanda, if the vote is favorable, it is a 2-year transitional
Yes, yeah.
proposition anyway. So it's, you know,
That I know. I've sat through enough joint
Yeah,
meetings.
yes,
But
I think
an
we all have
educated-
that.
an educated populace is the goal.
Absolutely. And I think
And
that's our job.
Our job.
Not an easy Going
job.
back to what you provided us with,
Yeah.
with regard to agenda, Stuart. I think that I've already made it clear that my own feeling is that efforts to do anything weekly. I'm not sure that that we could really justify the effort that would be required, and that
At this
what
stage
we had to
anyway.
offer. Whereas, for instance, a monthly program on Channel 23, perhaps with somebody who has had some fair experience doing interviewing and doing shows, talking with the chairs of the committee might be a painless way for them to, either the chairs or their designees, to provide an update of, just what kinds of things we're talking about, what kinds of things are we looking at, and so forth, to begin to give the community a feel for what's going on. And I've already said my piece with regard to trying to resurrect the idea of again, I would have thought monthly, but something that people can count on and seeing in the New Paltz Times. That same something would be on the Village and Town websites and on the Facebook for the Village and Town. Might not lend itself as easily to a poster to get to those who are immune to all of these other.
Well, the poster can, either advise people, give the clerk information so people can get information from the clerks, either the town or village clerk. The poster can be a simplified version that lets people know where they can get more detailed information.
Or advising them that on these nights there's public meetings at these places, and we hope you come and ask your questions and all of that.
And I think a good way to combine what we're saying about the weekly thing and the monthly thing is, because there are 7 committees, each one's really only meeting once a month, but if they gave us their reports once a month, it would be staggered just based on their meeting dates anyway, and we could still do some kind of weekly report that we could put together for, like, the New Paltz Times, for instance. And that could be a way that we can do that.
And maybe the New Paltz Times, because it's in a unique position, it's market to the town and village of New Paltz, and other places, but it's the central part, and since half of the news that's in there usually is about one or the other of the two governments, I would think that maybe they'd like to be our partner in this.
Right. Maybe, I would
haven't
think
talked
that
to them
they'd
about
be
it yet, so
following
I
this
hope they
anyway. Maybe we can talk to them. Maybe we don't have to do the writing for this. Maybe they would be willing to have one of
Somebody do this
their
as part of
staff
their
members
beat.
exactly have basically a beat on this or a
I
column.
really think it's worth a conversation as we progress to later stages. But just because I've raised the possibility of having to do paid ads, as we certainly want to get to a point of educating the public about something they may be asked to vote on. I trust at some point the issue of budget for these kinds of things will be part of what the umbrella committee will.
Well, there is a grant that has been applied for, and we don't have any
No
status
feedback.
on that.
But would
That
that
was for the purposes of public relations, taping, all of the informational.
was it also going to cover things like, if need be, hiring somebody to be able to put together the nice, clear PowerPoint kinds of things that we were able to have for the other public sessions, or the school district uses when it's trying to sell its budget, or other kinds of other organizations.
We haven't, the budget did not delineate
Okay.
specific things that the money could
How
be
much was
directed
requested?
to. It's $5,000,
Okay.
of which the town and the village have already agreed to pay for.
I was going to say, would
Recording.
If we don't get the grant, as you can see, it's happening now, but it'd be nice to get it so that we could use the money for other things.
For other things such as what you're talking about.
I have to leave, which also begs the question, is this definitely when we're going to meet?
It's up to the committee. I mean,
This is not particularly good time for me.
Well, that's the problem, and Gail
I
can
know. It's
attest to
annoying.
that from trying to get the other group to meet. It was, I'm sure, a nightmare. because everybody has a different schedule. The way this came about is I asked the village clerk to tell me when the room was available for 20 days or something. And then at one of the meetings, I asked Ariana to fill in of those dates and times when she was available, and I knew when I was. And then we sent out the times to the rest of you.
Yeah.
So
This is the
morning-
by hand way of doing
The
it.
morning options that you had offered weren't going to work because of things like the room and or the taping?
I think the taping people will be there whenever it is, as long as we don't have too many things scheduled for the same time. But no, I don't think the taping's an issue. The room could be an issue depending when it is. And personally, I'd rather not do something in the middle of the day, either do it at the
I
end
agree.
or the beginning, because
Exactly.
I do have other things to do in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And I can do it once in a while,
And was the
but
middle
not
of
all
the
the
day better for
time.
you?
Oh, you work.
I mean, it
You
depends
work.
on the day.
Lucky like you.
I
when
mean, that's, and that's my current job.
Oh,
schedule.
yeah,
If
really
that
lucky.
changes, obviously, but I can try to work my work schedule around it, but it, you know, it's a little up in the air, but at least for the meantime.
Well, we need to get more people before we can, I think. before we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
decide
Okay, well,
where it would be.
let me ask this
The
question
two
before you
the
depart.
two boards did say, although we didn't vote on it, that they favored night meetings because more people.
And I would agree with that.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
So that was the only direction in that regard, right?
And I think we should do that in order to, you know,
And that
make
was a
it that
consistent-
and just accommodate public.
And
who want to
Mondays
come.
are
Yeah.
generally good
Yeah.
nights because other things don't seem to be meeting, and all the committees seem to be taking Monday nights.
Well,
We're
I
gonna
mean,
run out of Monday nights before we run
Yeah,
out
you
of
better
meetings.
grab what you
yeah,
want.
well, the third Monday remember you were saying when it's planning and zoning, it is the third Monday, I remember.
Right.
Because it conflicts with tenant landlord, it just so happened to not this month because there was no tenant landlord
Right.
meeting. But when there is, that is
Human
going to be the
Resources, I believe, is the second Monday. Finance, as
I
I
have
said, is
meetings on
first.
Monday the
So if
6th
you
every
want a
month.
Monday night, you better grab the fourth.
You-
I mean,
you-
well,
me-
Monday nights are bad for me in
Monday
general.
nights are not good.
Oh,
unfortunately.
well then
not-
grab it two different night.
All right, well, maybe everyone can give their input for this committee and send it to the village clerk, who'll get it to us, and we'll see what we can do with it. Before you leave, though,
As far as chair,
yes.
I'm totally comfortable with pretty much anyone sitting here being chair. There's
Well,
nothing here that I
actually,
would-
by process elimination, he said chairman, so there's only
Well,
two
that's-
men
Oh, good,
in
not
this
it.
room. So ladies, feel free.
No, that was exactly what me and Ariana
Well,
did both did for chair. We're just like, not
Yeah.
it.
No,
That's the.
If you're
Chairperson,
sitting in a circle, well,
That's
that's
right,
That-
she's the chairman.
that was Stewart's chairman. The charge was chairmen or co-chairs.
Chairperson.
Well, but I don't know, I mean, this said chair. Is
so
it
we
a
have
mandate to have co-chairs?
No,
it's a mandate to have someone who's the contact to the central committee.
So stop looking in another direction.
The gentleman wearing a tie.
Well, I was going to make a suggestion that perhaps, since we have this pretty great plan to recruit so many new volunteers, you'd be willing to convene the next meeting
Yeah,
and then
that
we'll
would-
and elect the chair then?
That'll be
At
fine.
least that we
Would
have
that
more
be
people
okay?
participate in the decision.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm just knowing that they're going to ask me, well, who did your committee elect as the chair? And so
Elect
that
you the
would-
temporary
We could
chair.
have an interim chair.
How about the
yeah.
temporary? Yes.
You can
But it's not me.
Chairman
You
pro
can
tem.
report
Sorry that I had
that
to
the
leave.
group was fiercely independent. And
Oh, that's really true.
Refused to elect a chair at this first meeting and wanted to wait until there was a larger number in attendance.
I would recommend co-chairs myself,
Well, we're still
Because-
going for a while, but not too long. I don't think.
particularly for this committee. Because number one, the finance committee deliberately chose not to have a board member from either board as the chair. Because one, we believe it would be perceived as more neutral, and board members all have an awful lot of committee work, board meetings and everything else. my suggestion is that perhaps you and Gail both would consider chairing. Gail has the advantage that she worked with the public part of the efficiency committee meeting, and she knows all the people who came to her meetings and things like that, and I just think it would.
Well, I'd have to say,
Gail would
wanna
be
go
an
back-
excellent
no,
chairperson
I
by
want to go
herself,
back-
you know.
No, I want to go back to
Well, I'll let
my
you all fight it out.
I think
earlier
our
position about
original-
having more people here.
Yeah.
I am not entirely clear that I'd be able to participate in that way. So I myself would need at least another meeting before I could say that. But with regard to getting more people, if you would like, I would be very happy to get in contact with the handful of people I
That'd be
identified
super.
for you as the former chair, of the co-chair of the CAC. And say you did such a wonderful job, would you join us now?
That'd be great.
So I'll do that for those people that,
Okay, let's ask in general, though, we can't pick a date until until we have this feedback, but I mean, roughly, how long from now do we want to convene the next meeting? 2 weeks, 4 weeks, what? Sometime in August?
I mean, I guess maybe sometime after the 125th, which is only 2 weeks away anyway.
Sometimes it's between that and the end of August?
Yeah, maybe it
Is anyone going away for a month or something?
not for a month, but for a couple of weeks, but you're talking about sometime in August.
Sometime in August, but once the...
that's the 5th, so that's
Oh, it's the
early in
5th.
August. We'll
Oh.
be able to go.
I wouldn't be here that following week, but
When are you going?
And
We're
I
going
will
in
only
for-
come if you ask me to come.
Well, you're welcome to come
No,
anytime,
that's
but
very kind.
you're heavily burdened already, so it's up to you. What,
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, I think you all can handle this quite well on your own.
I think we can.
Well, why don't we ask this then, that everyone send to the village clerk at least 2 things. One is when you're not going to be available between now and the end of August. And also, what your preference for dates would be. And obviously, the larger the group gets, the more difficult it is to have a good time.
Well, let's try and narrow that a little bit. I mean, realistically speaking, Wednesday nights are out.
Hmm.
It would seem to me,
Unless you meet early. For example, the ethics committee meets once a month at the same time as the village board, but they meet at 6 o'clock instead, and the village board meets at 7:30. So I mean, it can be done depending who's available when.
okay, that's, if you think, and I would very much favor just of making it clear that, if that would work for people, that means the meeting has to be done by 7:15, which I think has a lot of advantages myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think it makes people, more focused.
But in talking with people about the probable scheduling, I should indicate that we would be working toward having evening meetings to make them more broadly available to the public.
That was
Yeah.
the idea. I mean, I don't.
No, that's fine. I just want to make
morning,
clear,
but
but that's
If people express interest to me, should I have them contact you?
no.
Well, who's the
Stuart is our
contact?
convener until we
I'm the
elect a chair.
convener
Okay.
until further notice.
Yeah, all
I guess
Yeah, he remains our.
till we inspire someone.
And I will get the outline and all of that out.
Okay.
Then you can just print as many copies as people join you.
So if you'll send those 2 things to the village clerk very soon, and if you'll also think about maybe if each of us brought along 2 other people to be on this committee, and there's really only a few requirements to be on the committee. One is you have an interest, and 2 is if you get on the committee that you'll attend and do the work with us. And that's it. So, and this committee has no preconceived notions about how it's supposed to happen or how it'll be set up, or everyone has their opinions perhaps, but that's not our job. Our job is to, when the various subcommittees get the data together or decision is made, we get that out to the people and get their questions answered, and not from any particular point of view. At least that's how I see it, but ours our job. Is there, So if everyone will do that,
Well, just on that particular point though, if, playing this all out according to the kind of timetable that Sally has mentioned, if we were to reach a point where both boards have voted to put a referendum out to the public, this is not a question I think needs to be answered right now, but ultimately I think does need to be. Was it the role of a committee like this to, if you will, encourage support for the referendum, or is it to provide as neutral information as possible with regard to what the recommendation will mean, so that people can vote in an informed way?
well, that's an interesting philosophical question.
That's why I say it doesn't need to be answered tonight,
No,
and
I
can't
mean-
be.
It is an
but,
interesting question.
But I want to get back to my earlier point of, insofar as I'll be able to be involved, wanting to avoid what we ran into with the steering committee effort, which is such utter lack of agreement about what the role of the group was to be.
I mean, right now, I know that what I've said is that I think our role is to gather the data, get it out in as many ways as we can to everyone in the community, encourage them to ask questions and find a way to get them answers. And that's the only for sure role that we have.
But even at that, if we are successful eventually in getting out information about what the committees are, and who the contact people are, that it may well be we'll want to encourage people to go to the contact person if you've got a question. Come to us if you've got a question that it isn't clear as to which committee this belongs with. But the community doesn't need another filter for their questions to go to these committees once we can make the public aware of their existence.
The co-chair of Human Resources is standing in the doorway. Have you, Brian, are you
Yeah.
all meeting the second Monday of the month? We meet, the finance is the first.
No, we did the second and fourth, the first and fourth or something.
You're meeting twice.
We had
Okay.
two this month, yeah. We had planned.
Second and fourth, so there may be an overlap because they want to meet, they haven't determined their meeting time, but you're meeting twice a month.
As of now, yes.
Okay.
I don't know what the
All right.
final plan will
And
be.
you meet at what time?
7:30?
And finance meets?
Finance is 7 o'clock,
Here?
first Monday of the month.
They're all gonna be here apparently.
So again, to be clear, you're asking us to let the village clerk know what dates we're available, or should we
Between
look
now
at
and Labor Day
Mondays?
weekend, let's just say,
Between now and
when you're
Labor
gonna
Day
be away
weekend.
for sure and you're not.
All right, that's all you need to, all right.
And then if you have preference for dates that you like, then put that in there too,
No,
and then we'll just
that's-
see what we can do.
Just any period that you're away between now and Labor Day, and any, okay.
And if everyone would really think about recruiting 2 other interested people,
Well, if I
To
get
join
any of
us.
those people on my list to say
that's
yes,
gonna
that
count for
counts.
your 2?
That counts. Oh, no, I'm hoping for more than 2.
Okay,
but-
all right.
But they're gonna count toward my quota.
If you get 3 to 1, it counts toward mine?
The recommendation language.
Yeah, we'll get her.
A master
She's in the hall.
contact
We'll get her.
list.
We'll get that.
What? No, I'm saying, what else was she going to send us? There were, I think there were
The
3
charges
things.
to the
That was the
committees.
other one. Yes.
So Pete, you haven't said too much. Do you have anything you'd like to say at
Said
this
just
stage?
enough.
And you're sitting it all up to the end, and you're gonna pull it all together with a resolution for it all.
There's an idea.
Yeah?
So, is there anything else we'd have to discuss tonight, or do we know where we're going from here?
I mean, I feel like I know what we all have
I had
tasks.
come believing that it was to be an organizational meeting, and I think it has served that purpose well. Thank
Yeah.
you
All right?
for organizing us so nicely.
Yeah, this was a good agenda.
And when you find out when the next meeting is after we gather this dot in some quasi-scientific way, figure out how we're going to have the next meeting. When you hear that, if you would email to me things that you think should be on the agenda, there's nothing sacred about this agenda. It's for discussion purposes so that we can make sure that we're going to talk about what everybody wants to talk about. Otherwise, you're going to get what I think of. So that's your defense.
I'm sure Pete's sitting down there already formulating, you know, these shows that he's going to do, right?
This is going on my bulletin board.
Yeah.
I look at it every day.
Is there anything else before we close? And
Mondays, are Mondays good?
Mondays sound like they're tough because two of the committees meet on the first and third, and one of the committee meets on the first and third, and one meets on the second and fourth. However, that the only thing you could do is meet earlier. So if we could meet at 5:30 or 6, and that was okay with the committee, we could do that, or in the morning. You know, so that particular time of the day is going for Mondays.
Yeah, anytime from 5 o'clock on is fine with me, and most nights of the week.
But evenings
Mondays are good.
Evenings are better for you.
Yeah. They 7:30 is generally a good meeting time, but I can do this earlier if necessary. If there are a few other options or no.
All right, so we'll be looking, you know, at that possibility as well. Anything else? So we'll stand
I move that
adjourned
we
until the
adjourn.
next meeting.